So what this video will show us is how to present our information in a works cited page that relates to the date of publication and a date of access for information that we get from a database. So let's look at the example that we see in front of us. If we want to, what we'll notice is that we'll see two different yellow highlighted portions. And I want you to take a look at the year of publication where you see one that says 2012, and then you see one that says the date of publication. And I want you to try to think about what is the difference that you see between these two, and I guess why do we only see one that has a year and one that has an actual month and a year? Well, the one that has just a year is because the actual article is published on a bi-monthly basis. And the one that has the actual month and the year is published on a monthly basis. And so what we're seeing is that if there's something that has publications that come out multiple times in a month, we'll just put our year down. And if there's something that has just once a month publication, we put the month and then the year. And then the other part that we're going to be focusing on later is the date of access. And how do we go about putting the date of access in our reference for our works cited page? So let's look at the first example. What we see first in front of us is an article that we were able to get for our paper that we want to use. And so the article says Morrison's The Bluest Eye. And what you'll see there is that the year is 1994, but next to the year you'll see fall. So why is it that we see the word fall and not an actual month in front of fall, in front of the 1994 year? Well, the reason why we see that is because this actual publication is actually published on a seasonal basis. And so when you see something that has a season, fall, spring, summer, you want to make sure you put that season and the year next to it. So what happens when you see something that says April 2010? So here's another example from a different database. And you can see this example comes from our SARC-Articles database. And so from the SARC-Articles database, it has April 2010 as the actual date that it was published. So you want to make sure you put in the actual APR 2010 where it says date of publication. And notice because it has the month and the year next to it, you want to use that information, the month and a year, because that means that this was actually published on a monthly basis. So we would put on there APR 2010 and our date of publication. But if we go back, we also see that there's something that says the date of access. So when do we actually use the date of access? Well, the date of access is actually used for the date that you actually went and accessed the article online. So what it will be helpful for you to do is when you actually see something online, what you want to do is make sure you write the date down that you saw it online. And you want to make sure you put that somewhere because that information may change the next day, or the article may go down, or the site may not be able to be accessed the next day. So whenever you get information, you want to always make sure that you put on there the date of access. So as far as that day is concerned, that's the day that you were able to access the information. But that information is actually presented a little differently. So let's take a look at how you present the date of access information. So if we look at the date of access information, what we see is that the day is always presented first, and then the month, and it's the abbreviated month, followed by the year. Now that's very different than what we're accustomed to using for a date. What we typically would put for a date is typically the month and then the day and then the year. But what we want to make sure that we do when we're using MLA and when we're putting something into our reference or our works cited page is to always use the day first and then the month and then the year. What I've just shown you is how to use the year of publication or the date of publication, depending on how often it is published, as well as the date of access, which is the day that you actually access the article on the web. Be sure to make sure that you use the right format for each type of publication that you present in your works cited page. Good luck.